Thank you very much, Cahirlook, and welcome to our Minister from the West, Anne Rabbitte. I just wanted to really pay tribute to what has been done. I know that an awful lot of the people who are working in the primary healthcare service have been working non-stop on the front line for COVID as well. In particular, our area of CHO2, Community Healthcare Organisation 2, covering Galway, Mayo and Roscommon, as the Minister would well know, we see the amazing work being done by Ability West and Brothers of Charity in that area. I'm very pleased to see that all stakeholders, including Inclusion Ireland, were brought together in the framework for the resumption of day services. And I really want to pay tribute to you, Minister, as well on achieving that extra funding for the extra day in services and the 100 million, I suppose, for extra on top for disability. There really has been a huge impact to families, to carers who are on the point of exhaustion. When the day service is closed and there is no access to respite, so it's great to see that this will come along. And it's a relief to see that so many of them opened up on the 3rd and 4th week of August. I appreciate the document that was uploaded onto the website with that detail. We're talking about nearly 19,000 people with disabilities who access these services, and as you mentioned, across 1,000 buildings and premises. Minister, you mentioned in your opening speech the attendance at gyms and swimming pools, and how important that is as well. In the West, we've fought to ensure that there's funding available to support swimming pools staying open in both Tuam and Banlasloe, and the importance of physical therapy for people with disabilities. Swimming is for all ages and all abilities. And again, this is really where cross-departmental support, I suppose, is so crucial in delivering what is needed for people with disabilities. So working perhaps with the Department of Local Government to ensure that these amenities will not be lost in regional areas. Regional areas are so crucial. From speaking to providers locally, they are very happy to see funding for temporary posts. However, I was asked questions about funds to modify buildings in relation to public health guidelines. So the buildings, and we're talking, I know, about a lot of different types of buildings and being able to bring people in and the spacing between them, but also funds for transport. Over 8,000 people use transport to get to, a lot of the disability service providers. CLOR is looking at that as well, but what other funding has been allowed for transport? The report from Inclusion Ireland that you mentioned from June and has been mentioned by Senator Ruan, I believe, earlier, mentioned basically that there's, I think it talked about 55 people with intellectual disability. Very much it's talking about how people would be able to use technologies if services or equipment were available, and that was 80% of those surveyed out of the 55. But it is obviously a challenge for non-verbal, but it's just that obviously we're going to be delivering services in a different way. And then again, loneliness, anxiety, all of those and exhaustion came across, and access to therapy, support, speech and language and OT. Some of the questions, Minister, if I may pose, I suppose, what is the current allocation of staff currently within CHOs to COVID testing and tracing? Secondly, the timeline for the personal plans that are put in place, for each of the users. And I know that it's a person-centred plan, and then what's actually required from them on a medical basis. I suppose, when is the timeline for when that might be delivered? What funding is allocated for transport, if that's available, and if not, maybe your department might be able to provide it? There's increased funding for at-home support. It's wonderful to see the hours, the extra, 5 million hours, isn't it, for home care? And it's great to see a little bit of an increase in the disability allowance, but we may need to look at that again, because I think so many more families at home are trying to provide support to users. Just the total budget, I was so impressed, 2.22 billion, unprecedented, definitely. I suppose just with a background from Health Innovation Hub Ireland, very much, I want to see how is technology being used. How are we linking in with eHealth Ireland here? Because there's such a backlog with services like OT, speech and language. Like, how are we going to ensure that people get access? It's not enough. We need to be able to use technology along with the funding to deliver these services. Particularly, I suppose, telehealth, telecare, e-health and digital health. People with physical disabilities, I'm not speaking so much about intellectual disability, really important that we're able to access initiatives in the CHOs. It is about bringing the health service into the 21st century. I've worked in the CHO, I've worked in CELTA, I've worked with people working in these areas. I know how difficult it is, but we need to be able to ensure that technology is there to support our healthcare professionals to deliver this. Very much so assistive technologies, and I think it was Senator McGreehan actually who mentioned about windows and doors, remote controls and so on. Very important to allow people to be able to live independently at home, especially now when they're not able to access day services. So how are we investing in these types of technologies? Screen reading for vision impairment, voice output communications, wearable technologies, particularly with medication reminders. Like, these are all, there are phenomenal companies out there, but there's also, this technology exists. And I suppose, how do we work with Enable Ireland and Disability Federation of Ireland to try and bring this across? I suppose just apologies, I'll just finish up here. So just to say thank you very much, Minister. I know there's a little bit there, but it is just really about how do we use technology to support the people that are there. Really appreciate it. Thank you.